All right. So I'm Melissa Coy, and I'm from the Utah Division of State History, which is under the Department of Heritage and Arts. And I work in the Library and Collections program. And as you can tell, I'm excited about Saltair. I'm so excited that I'll put an exclamation point on it. So we just subscribed to Omeka. We are doing omeka.net. And this is still in like super duper draft format, so be like super gentle with my slides because it looks a little bit better now in real life, but it's still a work in progress. And I'm a huge noob at Omeka and metadata, so this is just a huge learning curve for me, but it's been fun. So one of the things I wanted to do with this exhibit was, first I went to find out what was online and what we had already done as an institution. And there's a couple slides here that just kind of show you some screenshots. And they're just some nice pictures with good captions. But being a historian, I wanted to know more. I'm so fascinated by this turn of the century moment and all of the kind of transitions that are happening socially and culturally. And the first Saltair pavilion was up between 1893 and 1925. And so I wanted to know more than just, okay, here's some old-timey people in some costumes. I wanted to see, or not costumes, but in their clothes. I wanted to know more about that question of change over time. And I wanted with this exhibit to have narrative tissue between the images so that I could try to disseminate the kind of information that's coming from academia or from other writers over the years about Saltair and try to distill that for an audience that's a casual browser on their phone. So my goals here with the project was to highlight some items from across the collection. And at first I thought, oh, I'll just digitize like 10. And that turned into way more than that. But I really wanted to highlight different types of material types, diverse material types, excuse me. I wanted to take some photographs of some of the artifacts we have in the collection. I wanted to digitize some of the manuscripts we have in the collection. And as I've gone through this project, I've actually been able to do some selective digitization out of different parts of collections. Like, okay, the whole thing's not cool, or not maybe as very interesting online. But this contract for a Wild West show is pretty cool, so I'm going to put that online. So it's just kind of a gut reaction, like, what do I like? And hopefully those are my instincts. That are pretty good. So, and then I also wanted to show Saltair in a new light. I really wanted to talk about it as a social history to emphasize that change over time and to also be inclusive to all different types of users and to also the social makeup of Utah history. So, you know, this at the time was my thesis statement, and I've like narrowed it down even more. But I decided it needed a thesis statement to work. So, and I've broken up the exhibit into these different categories of, you know, building it, what it was like opening day, what kind of attractions were there, what kind of live entertainment could you see, and as you can see, fancy conclusion title. Where we can talk about archaeological stewardship. So I'm bringing in staff from Antiquities to write about 3 paragraphs about the stewardship issues at the site, the archaeological site of Saltair. And also I'm bringing in material from Arts, which is a sister agency in DHA, to talk about kind of like this legacy of Saltair. Because we have quite a few pieces of art in the collection that were made in 1975, but they're paintings of the original Saltair. So to me, there's something really interesting there. Like, Saltair is something people really love. What is it about that, right? And this is like the first piece I've ever written since graduate school, but even probably since an undergrad, where I've actually written something happy because this is fun, right? I mean, you can't help but like, as I'm going through this collection, I mean, everyone's got smiley faces. And yes, there are problems at Saltair, but there's problems at lots of public spaces, right? And so we can talk about those in this exhibit, but overall, I just kind of wanted to highlight these key pieces. So here we have a men's bathing suit that we had photographed. I mean, I'm like discovering all this cool stuff in our collection. We have a 1920s bathing suit from, this is a male one, and then there's a woman's suit as well. Yes, it's made out of wool, so, but that's an interesting point too, right? Change over time. It starts out as wool, and then you kind of get a little bit more, you don't get elasticized swimsuits until after Saltair burns down, actually. But by the time it opens up, the second pavilion opens up in 1926. It's, they have modern bathing suits, and so they're like talking about how you can rent those. Anyway, sorry, I will totally like digress about Saltair. It's so fascinating. We have this amazing, official program from the first season, and then we have some archaeological finds from Saltair that I think are a great way of talking about some things that maybe you didn't expect in Utah history. For example, there is a really complicated history, surprise, with alcohol in this state, but it's not how you think it's going to be. It's actually really, it does not really divide itself along religious lines. So there's a lot of really interesting conversations happening because Saltair was owned by the Mormon Church until 1906, and they're selling beer. And so there's a lot of like interesting conversations happening. So I wanted to bring that up too. I just wanted people to see like this version of Salt Lake that maybe they didn't know about, or Utah, or Saltair, to be specific too. Well, as I was going through, and I was like, well, I want to use some other images to help tell this story, right? And so I really like wrestled with this idea of reuse, which was kind of funny because when you called me to do this, I thought, oh, well, everyone else is doing this too, so that's good. But I had totally thought, oh, am I just cheating by reusing a few images? The Sanborn maps that are here at the U, and then the digital newspapers, they all help tell this story too. And so I decided, you know what, let's just do it. Let's go ahead and include these new images because they're being used in a new way. This is still from the inside of the Hippodrome. They would actually have plays in there, as well as bike races around the edge. And Saltair had everything, really. Oh, you guys, they had like dancing dogs in costumes. I'm not kidding you. They had a flea circus. Oh man, it's amazing. So what I'm noticing, so here's the metadata for that. Well, this metadata was made in, when was that made? Anyway, yes. So it's a little old, right? The right statement isn't really up to date. And so as I'm kind of going through, I'm realizing it's really easy to get bogged down in the metadata while I'm trying to write at the same time. So I've kind of like decided to approach it like I would an old research paper. Just have my, write my content first, pull together all the pieces, do the metadata last, like my footnotes, right? So where I can be like really focused on that. But this does raise some interesting questions. Do I just copy this metadata straight over into the new metadata that's on the site? Do I clean it up and then like try to clean up the original too as we go? I mean, I don't know any answers to this yet. I'm just still figuring it out. So for now, I'm just going with what's there, and then I can tweak it later is kind of my feeling. I found that, I have more, of course, I had all these epiphanies on my way here this morning about the pros and cons to digital reuse. So, one of the things I love about this is that, man, like the internet, it really will suck you in, right? It's the matrix. And so if you are able to lead users to browse other collections, then who knows what they'll find, right? It's just following your own curiosity to find some really great stuff. And so it also like emphasizes or enhances all of our collections because we can, reference each other. And then it also helps to not limit us in how we tell our story, or how we tell the story we're trying to tell. Because the sources I had picked that were from our collection were cool, but, and we have some digital images that I'm using from our digitized collection that is hosted up here. But some of that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, right? I mean, it just tells pieces of it, but I want an opening day conversation, and so by doing that, I can show a different kind of source. And then one of the other things, so anyway, it felt freeing when I realized you could sorry, I'm just babbling. It felt freeing when I realized you could reuse images and kind of give them new life. And the other thing too is that you can, by interpreting these images in new ways in an Omeka exhibit, you are giving it a new life. So one of the things I'm noticing from our older collections is, that are on there is that, there's a picture of, for example, the amusement pier. And, just you're scrolling through and it's like, that's interesting. But if you have someone who has analyzed that image for you and to tell you that there's a laughing parlor in the left-hand corner of the image, and laughing parlors were very, very popular between 1905 and 1915 at Saltair. And what the heck is a laughing parlor, right? Or there's another one that says Japanese ping pong. Well, ping pong is actually a British invention, so it's not. So why, it leads to all these interesting conversations and questions. You can ask the sources about, these different, why would they have presented it in this, as a Japanese ping pong or whatever. You can talk about all sorts of different issues like race and stereotypes and all that kind of stuff in new ways. And you can it's kind of like, I feel like it's giving medicine to, with sugar, here's your facts that go with your really cool image. And then of course, we just have to be careful, I think, and aware of being careful with metadata and to be clear about where the item's coming from. And obviously I'll learn more as I keep going with this, but I just think Saltair is just so fascinating to me. It's already a place of so many different weird contradictions. I mean, it's on a lake that doesn't have any outlets, right? It's built on a pavilion on the lake. There's these pilings that go into the ground of the lake bed, right? And then swimming in Salt Lake. Who wants to swim in Salt Lake? But it was super popular because it had health benefits and all these other interesting things. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is digital reuse it's not cheating. And yeah, and if you guys all have any sort of insight you can share with me, I am totally open to that. So anyway, thanks.